Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me thus far are Adam
Hello.
and Functional.
I admit nothing, I deny nothing.
We
I know
might
nothing.
be joined in a bit by Poptart, but as it is once again a Friday, of course, I'm the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. How are both of you doing tonight?
Après-vous, madame?
How are you doing, Adam?
Well, fine, Adam. Thanks for asking. My back is fucking killing me, but hey, I'm here.
Yeah,
Thought
I
I'd
speak
pop
French.
in and hang out with the boys on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can't
Now,
roast
since
the
you're
wizard.
talking to us again, Adam, how are you doing?
Um.
Or are you going to go silent again now that we've asked? Is that
He's
what the
just giving you the
game is
silent
going to be?
treatment.
Wait.
Every time we ask you how you're doing, you're just going to go silent as the grave?
Wait, am I
We can
muted?
hear you.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
We're just
No.
busting
shit.
busting your balls over here. Come on.
Whoa. No, I thought I had technical issues. I tend to have.
Don't make
those.
me break out the Christopher Walken, because
Is that supposed
he
to
had
be a
that
walking?
watch up his ass.
Hey, as long as it's
And he'd be damned.
Christopher
He'd be
Walken-
damned if he let us get. He let some gook get his greasy mitts on it.
as long as it's the Christopher Walken who's doing the dance in the hotel lobby in the air.
The
weapon of
hotel
choice?
lobby
Yeah,
walking,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
the walking calling a bunch of Central American villagers a bunch of goddamn Oompa Loompas.
You Oompa Loompa! Yes! Oh, wait, what the fuck?
Hey, Bobby.
Rundown.
Track down. Yeah.
Hey,
Or, wait, what? Track down, right?
No, the rundown.
A run. Yeah, the rundown.
Rundown.
How's
Uh, and hello, Pop Tart. How are you doing?
Oh,
I'm good. How are you?
Doing grand. Just
welcome.
doing some of the prep work for my dinner.
Of course.
Oh, hey,
Yep.
what's for dinner?
Dinner tonight will be pork chops with a bourbon and brown sugar
Bone in or out?
seasoning. These are bone out pork chops this time.
Simple.
That-
Simple. Yeah.
Yep. That I'm going to be cooking up some green onion and apple in a very quick and dirty sauce to spoon over the top. Then some roast Brussels sprouts and mashed potatoes.
Nice. Very
And
nice.
Drinks will most likely be a bourbon and a beer. I have yet to decide which type of beer, though I'm thinking I'll go for a Sullivan's Irish Red.
You know, a lot of people claim that they hate Brussels sprouts, and I'm one of those people. I maintain you just haven't had them done right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Elwyn, my wife, same thing. She hated them for the first 37 goddamn years of her life. She meets me, I do them correctly. Then with that, just you get that salty, with that little bit of crispy on the outside, Sanguine, and it's just
Mhm.
like, mwah. And she's like, "Where have you been all my life?" And of course, she's talking about the food, not me. Like, fuck. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, just like when people say that they don't like mushrooms.
Do you know how many
It's-
fucking varieties of mushrooms?
It's either you've had varieties of mushrooms that you aren't fond of the flavor of, or more normally, it is you just haven't had mushrooms cooked right.
Yeah.
And it's not really your fault that you haven't had mushrooms cooked right, because every fucking cookbook
So easy to
in
fuck up.
existence gets mushrooms wrong. And the thing is, chefs know that they get the mushrooms wrong in cookbooks. Because when you're watching chefs cook a meal and it isn't a tutorial, their order changes entirely based off of what actually works versus when they're doing a cookbook meal, which is one of the things that drives me crazy. Because Gordon Ramsay's has a bunch of here's how you make this dish sort of videos, and he has cookbooks and shit like that, naturally. And for some fucking reason, when he's doing one of those videos, he'll throw the mushrooms in at the wrong point. When he's cooking something and is not doing it as a tutorial on how to cook something, he throws them in at the right point. Every fucking time.
Yes. I've noticed this. I've also noticed, though, that Chef Ramsay, he really likes a lot of his foods just slightly underdone. He loves his eggs to be a little bit runny. I hate that. I'm a texture guy. So I can empathize if somebody's excuse is, well, I don't like the texture of, the mushroom texture, that spongy. Okay, well, then that gives me information to avoid that style of cooking related to what you were saying in the instructional type presentation that Ramsay does. He puts them in at the wrong time so that they're just a little bit on the spongier side of being cooked.
And I'll stand up for his scrambled egg in one respect. He's doing an English scramble.
Yeah.
Rather than an American scramble.
It doesn't mean he's right, though.
No. If you're doing an English scramble, that is a beautiful English scramble. If you're doing a French scramble, his eggs are far too solid. And if you're doing an American scramble, they're far too liquidy.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, scrambles should be fluffy but cooked.
That's the more American scramble, sometimes referred to as the hard scramble.
Well,
or the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have hard scrambles, then you have kind of the middle scramble, and then you have the French scramble, which is fucking liquid.
But the major key difference here is here in North America, both up here and down in the States.
Yep.
We wash our eggs. So we get them pre-cleaned, whatever. There they get the uncleaned eggs that can sit out. They don't need to be refrigerated. And it's a different way of treating them when you cook them. And you can have them without any safety concerns more on the raw side. Here, even when you're doing like a sunny side up kind of egg, you still want to get that temperature of the yolk up to kill the bacteria or potential for bacteria, as opposed to just leaving it pure runny and just making sure the white of the egg is fully cooked. You still want to make sure you get a little bit of that temperature up into that yolk, not to cook it, not to make it solid, but to just, it's different because they don't need to do that in Europe.
And also the bulk of, there's a lot of people get it wrong when it comes to salmonella. Salmonella isn't from uncooked egg.
No, it's from the bacteria outside.
And do you know where that bacteria is?
On the shell?
On the shell.
On your hands?
It gets on your hands, it gets
in
from
the air.
Shell, and it ends up often getting in the egg when you crack the egg. If you crack it incorrectly, you'll end up with a bit of shell getting into the egg, which then exposes the egg to salmonella. Because if you crack an egg properly, the chance of you getting salmonella from that egg, if you crack it properly and you aren't finger fucking the egg, is functionally nil.
Cardboard, where are you from? Are you from the UK, Europe? Because here in North America, when you get eggs from the grocery store, the shell has been washed, cleansed, cleaned. I mean, if you go to a farm, you could probably get them straight up and raw, not unwashed. Yeah. There's no real big difference for or against. It's just been cultural practice, to be honest. Because either way, if you know how to crack an egg, you're cracking an egg. If you're not cracking the egg properly, washed or not, it's not gonna.
Yep, but
the difference is nil. Practically.
We have a higher rate of chickens that are infected with salmonella, which means that we have a higher rate of their
Cryptic likes his eggs raw.
Eggs being coated in salmonella. And really, it's not even on the shell of the egg normally. The reason why it ends up on the shell of the egg is because the egg ends up falling in chicken shit.
Yes.
Salmonella is
Chickens aren't the cleanest creatures.
Yeah. Salmonella is actually passed by chicken shit getting onto the egg that then ends up getting the egg contaminated, and then it hangs out on the eggshell until it gets exposed to the proper environment for it to procreate, which is in the body. And that's where we end up with the salmonella issue. But yeah, it's not from the egg. The egg doesn't have salmonella. It's the shell of the egg, not uncooked egg. But once you get salmonella in the raw egg, then yeah, you have to cook the salmonella out, which is why it's advised that you cook eggs completely.
Yeah,
but
it's surface structure. It's just like cooking steak. Excuse pardon me. It's just like the difference between ground beef and like a steak.
Mhm.
The steak, the worry part is the outside of the steak, not inside the meat. Provided it's not week old meat that's just been sitting outside, obviously. But with
Mhm.
ground meat, the danger is because it's got so much exposed surface. That's why something like a tartare is very rare. And I mean rare as in to find it, because of the way it has to be treated, and it has to be ground fresh right there to order. Otherwise, you're running a huge risk.
And Cardboard, which thing do you think is wrong in what has been said?
Yeah.
The way that salmonella gets into the egg, because as a biologist, that's the way that it gets into an egg.
Yeah, I was a chef for 25 years. Like, what I was taught, what I understood. All of it.
No, then you've been talking
misled,
correctly.
I think.
Yeah, because salmonella is not inside the egg. It just isn't.
An uncracked egg does not contain salmonella on the inside.
Yeah.
Again, when you expose the inner goodies to the
outer
environment,
shell.
to other foreign objects or the outside of the shell, then you run the risk of a contamination, which, when you're most of the time when you crack an egg, even if you end up having to finger fuck it, a piece of shell comes in, whatever, generally because you're cooking it so fast, it's going to kill any bacteria before it becomes a problem. Most cases, there's always outliers.
Even at that, I mean, aren't there people who drink raw egg? Like they'll just crack an egg, put it in a cup, and sip it down.
You've got to be very careful when they crack
When you
it.
do that, you need to have fresh eggs, and you need to be very careful when you crack them, and don't let them sit out after you crack them. It's effectively you crack it, you gulp it, and you go.
Yeah.
That was one of the funnest parts of living on a farm. Was basically raw milk right then and there, raw egg right then and there, fresh as fresh can be, delicious.
Yeah, the problem is that they don't last long.
Vacation, he said. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't last long. That's why we have all this regulation of like, excuse me, pasteurization and what some argue is overregulation or whatever. The difference in North American commercial eggs that get washed. It's whatever.
They get washed before they ever hit the market because that's our regulations.
Dude, I don't trust any of it. I'll wash everything,
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
As long as you're not getting sick, can you really do wrong? I don't think so.
Nope. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm crazy
in fact, a little E. coli, a little salmonella every now and then just makes your body fight that much harder if you come across a severe infection.
I really hate to say this, but every time I hear salmonella, um, I hear the fucking Who Needs the Quickie Mart song pops in my head.
Who
Sorry about
needs
the
the
sunlight.
Quickie Mart?
Yeah, dude, I
Their
was thinking,
floors are sticky mart.
damn it.
Oh yeah, we aren't saying that. And oh, did you think that we were saying that you wash your eggs? No, it isn't that we wash our eggs.
No.
Cardboard. It's that the eggs are washed before they ever hit the market.
Commercial
It's
eggs.
not-
Yeah.
It's
Like
not
the
the end
cartons you buy
user
in a
that
grocery store.
washes them. It's,
If you go to a farmer's market, if your neighbor's got chickens and is giving you eggs, they're probably not washed. There's no need at that point.
well,
Yeah.
if you go to a farmer's market, they probably are. If you're getting them from your neighbor who just pulled it out from under the ass of a chicken, they probably aren't.
Wash your ass. No,
But
even okay,
it's not the
Cardboard
end user
Archives
that's
said,
washing them.
okay, at least you're stupid washing your chicken with soap.
Yeah. I've heard
Yeah,
of
no. I wouldn't go that far, but like, if I got a can of soda, I'd run it through some water real quick. Like just one of those things where it's just, I know it might not do 100% of getting rid of all the funky stuff, but at least I'm, cautious about it. And even like eating an apple, I'll wash it before.
After you defrost, like if you freeze some chicken parts, breast or leg or whatever, and after you defrost it, you get that sticky. It's been
Yeah,
frozen, whatever.
There's a
It's
gel.
drawn out some of the moisture, some of the chicken juices there. I rinse it off. I don't wash it.
Do you have?
I wouldn't
the
use
two-
soap or anything like that.
Do you
That's
have the
weird.
two
No, just
section
a little-
sink?
Yes.
Because if,
No.
okay.
I have a separate thing, and then wash the sink.
Okay,
Like
because
like one of those what do you call them? A basin. Like you put it on the sink and it like covers the top.
Oh,
half,
okay.
and
So
it's like
you have a
workspace.
separate container, because I was going to say, if you are rinsing chicken in a sink, your sink is the most contaminated fucking place in your house.
Oh, it's not
Hands
touching.
Yeah,
down.
but then you could
It's not
just wash it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the thing is that think about the average person. Think about how often the average person probably washes their sink.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
saying when I learned from my chef days. I have 6 cutting boards. These 3 are for meats. These 3 are for everything else. And that work board that goes in I can't. It's hard to explain. It's got like little arms and it covers half the sink. It's like a cutting board with a drain, and you use that for things like meats, where you'd want something there, like if you're trimming bone and sinew off of chicken or something, right? So that the water can flush away the sinew while you're breaking down this chicken, something like that. Never put food, even if your sink you think your sink is the cleanest thing in the fucking world. It's not. It is actually the worst part of your kitchen.
Yep. And again, if you're rinsing raw meat, it is absolutely the worst part of your kitchen.
Yeah.
What I tend to do is I use the paper towel method for a good chunk of that, just to...
Yeah, the water is kind of just like a cheat code. Just again, like I said, not for fresh chicken, just for stuff that's been frozen and then defrosted, because the freezing process does draw out some of the moisture, and you can see after it's defrosted, you'll see there's that goo all over the place, and I'd rather be safe than sorry and just rinse it off. Obviously, not washing it or using any temperatured water. And no, that's weird, cryptic. Like, you don't have to something like pork, it's either going to be dirty or clean meat to begin with.
Well,
Something like
there's
beef,
actually...
like the like I said before, the only worrisome part of the beef, as long as it's not ground beef, like steak or roast or whatever, the only important part is the outside. It doesn't, unless it's been sitting out for a long ass time, the bacteria doesn't go inside the meat, and that's why
And it's a cultural
it.
thing that Cryptic brought up, because they're...
Yeah, I know. I'm in
From Southeast Asia through the Middle East, and a little bit into, well, more just Eastern Asia rather than just Southeast Asia. But throughout that entire stretch, it is extremely common to wash meat, as well as most of Africa. It's extremely common to wash meat.
Yeah.
In Europe and in the US, it is very rare to do so. And it's because of the availability of refrigeration into more recent times. When you're dealing with meat that hasn't been refrigerated and was just freshly butchered, then you tend to be instructed to rinse it. Depending on the culture, that can be running it underwater, soaking it in a basin with like lemon juice and some other shit in it as well. And it's because a lot of the fats and especially skin go off very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was a way of kind of washing off those resulting chemicals from the degrading of those fats. It is not needed if you're buying at a grocery store, you're storing in your refrigerator, and then you cook it. But if you're in a different culture where you are going to the wet market, then yeah, it's more common for you to wash your meat.
I never thought of it that way because, like, those are pretty much my specialties is Middle Eastern, East Asian cuisines. So, like, having my colleagues do that, it was kind of like so weird. I just never thought of it. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. That does make a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, that's why it's a cultural practice in certain areas. And like I said, it's effectively Southeast Asia through the Middle East down into Africa. That's extremely common. In Europe, it is extremely rare. In the US, it's even rarer.
Yeah, that reminds me of on TikTok there's a whole trend of like people from other countries coming and going to our grocery stores and like being weirded out by them.
Yep.
And one of them was, I think she was from like Ethiopia, and she was saying it was weird because none of our fruits and vegetables smell. Like you can't smell them when you're in the fruit section.
Mhm.
And someone else, like a few people in the comment sections were like, yeah, there's not even like flies or bugs on them. Like, they're nasty if they don't even want them.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's again a extremely cultural thing of all of our fruit is kept cool enough that the compounds that you tend to smell when it comes to fruit, those are the more volatile compounds. That's why they're ending up in the air.
We also, I don't know if you guys do that down here. We certainly do it up here. We coat our fruits, like apples, these kinds of things, with a waxy substance just to preserve them. That's why
some of them are waxed, some of them are unwaxed.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of like it really depends on the individual product, but generally when you get fruits like apricots or apples, plums, they're typically coated, and that's why you take them home and you wash them and you eat them. And that's why you don't see hordes of flies in grocery stores above those kinds of produce, because I mean the flies can't smell through the wax, Plus, like you said, we have a lot better technology and procedures in place that limit that kind of contact. Yeah, the flies are conducting themselves very irrationally.
I swear our chat is obsessed with bongs. Every time I hit my vape, someone asks who hits their bong.
Yep. Oh, that was you. If it makes you feel better, Cardboard, I'm smoking a fat blunt.
Yeah, I've been taking my rips, but
That's why
I
I'm
mute
coughing
myself
like a
because
motherfucker.
yeah, I don't want. But hey, congratulations, Cardboard. You chose poorly. I don't know. I thought maybe you thought me.
Have any of you seen the Not this latest Ghostbusters, the one before.
Afterlife?
The one with the
Afterlife.
kids.
Yeah.
No.
I saw it.
It sounded
it-
bad.
I saw it. It was not amazing. It wasn't god awful, but it
Yeah.
had the problem that every series, when they go, let's add kids, has.
The kids suck.
Yeah, the kids, people have problems writing kids, so they either come across as particularly annoying even for kids, or they come across as creepy because you're going, okay, why is this kid talking like a 30-year-old writer?
Well, I mean, in Dune, it kind of made sense that Paul's sister,
Yeah, you can have some characters that
It's
it
a
works,
joke. It's fine.
but you can have some characters that it kind of works for.
Yeah. No, I asked because
vast
I saw the
majority you don't.
newest. And I'm just there were two movies there. One that was absolute shit, and the other movie which was, decent. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. And I'm confused by this stuff because I just like you, I agree with the kid actor thing. And just on a personal note, I fucking hate kid actors. You can
Yep.
have them in your movie. They can be plot devices, driving forces. They should never really be your main character unless it's a kids movie.
Yep, and
Then
then
you're trying to
like I
relate
said,
kid issues to children. Kind of makes sense.
And
To
again,
us adults,
it's-
we're looking at a kid on screen, and it's like, dude, you have no life experience. I don't fucking care that you're learning about friendship.
Yeah,
Well,
and
hold on.
again, it's one of those things that it depends on how the kid is written. Because if the kid is written like an actual kid, I have far less issue with it. It's when they're written, again, like a 30-year-old writer sitting at the writing table.
Yeah, you've got Woody Allen coming out of a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that becomes very fucking creepy, and it's wrong. That isn't
Well,
how kids are.
And look at
Take
and
the
look at what
professional.
the well, no, but look at the movie Ghostbusters as a whole, though. You look at it, and when Afterlife was coming out, the thing that threw me off was when the director or producer or the Reitman guy, um, he was like, when I think of Ghostbusters, I think of a little girl in the middle of a field with a proton pack, and it's like, okay, that's the child in people watching the cartoon. I get that. But the movie is nothing about the cartoon. They're separate entities. Ghostbusters 2 is an example of, yeah, they're not the same thing. They tried to do it. So yeah, when you have the kids involved, it's like it just doesn't make sense. But the way they shoehorned everything to try and make it work, yeah, I can't watch Afterlife. It looks bad.
Yeah, I
But
hated that one.
I heard Frozen, the new one, was a little bit better, only because they kind of focused more on like busting ghosts type of thing. But still, it pulls you out when you watch little kids, you know, shooting these proton packs. When even in the first movie, they're like, dude, these things are heavy as shit. What the fuck, like.
Yeah.
See, when it comes down to it for me, I actually have the opposite reaction. Afterlife was better to me than the new one. Because Afterlife got one of the key elements of what Ghostbusters was. It didn't do it exactly, but it got the same feel. Ghostbusters, the first Ghostbusters, was not a movie based entirely around busting ghosts. That sounds weird to say. You can more accurately describe it as a movie about entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
interacting with each other.
Yeah.
That's a more and bitching about tax code. That's a more accurate depiction
and-
of the movie.
And the actual villain outside of Gozer was the fucking government.
Yep. And so when it
Yeah,
came to it, the actual heart of Ghostbusters was a very small story where it was, these are the people, this is what their life is like, this is what they're doing, this is what they're trying to do. And with Afterlife, I got that this is a small story about small people doing small things that end up having a big impact, which that worked for me.
Okay,
The problem that I had with it was, like I said, they focused on the children. I can get what they were going for. It came across a bit weird because the children didn't sound like children.
Mm-hmm.
It did change the focus because, again, the first one was talking about entrepreneurs and bitching at taxes. And this one didn't have any taxes because, again, dealing with kids. So it wasn't the same sort of life issues. But again, it hit life problems. It was trying to connect with the people around you and the world around you. That can work. They didn't do it brilliantly, but they at least had something in the right vein. The new one, it tried to make it too much. The point of this is we need to get ghosts on screen. We need to get ghosts doing big things on screen. And we need to focus on that and the massive impact. Everything had to be enormous for it. The original Ghostbusters built up to it being big. It didn't start big, imposing, and oh god, the world is ending.
No, there's breadcrumbs to the larger event that builds and builds and builds and crescendos when, okay, well, first it spikes when the keymaster and the gatekeeper turn into the dog things, and then crescendos when Gozer the Gozerian comes out, and now they've got a basically have to face down a god, and they realize you and the characters, of course, they've shown it through the story. All these little events, busting this ghost, and Egon even says at one point, there's a conflux of spiritual energy, and blah blah blah, and then it doesn't start off with, oh my god, the world's about to end, like.
Yeah,
but even Frozen Empire didn't start off that grand, but grand enough that you're kind of just like, well, where do we go from here?
Yeah, and that's
one step away from world-ending apocalypse, and oh, okay, so we're going that way again.
They started way too large. They didn't focus enough on the interactions between people. It was much more an action movie about busting.
You know what they should have done? They should, and this is counterintuitive because it's not my cup of tea, particularly generally, is make it about the family dynamic.
Yep.
Obviously, you have Egon's daughter. Excuse me, shit. Egon's daughter, who had a couple of kids, and now Paul Rudd's character is now becoming a part of the family, and maybe they're doing like they did in the original without being member berry bait. They're just running a family business,
Yep.
It's daily humdrum, blah 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 blah. But no, in the opening scene, instead, it's like, okay, now the mayor's coming down on them and blah blah blah. And again, it's too much too soon. It felt too much like there were, like I said, two movies happening here. And if you took half of that movie away, which is the half that I thought you should take away was that family stuff and just focus on the ghost busting, because the family stuff was actually not portrayed that well. However, if you, like I said, if you flip it and made that the movie itself, I think that could have been a better movie because it has those flow points that, like, the first act is, you're reacquainting with the time that has passed since Afterlife. You get the feeling, oh, okay, they've become not a full-fledged family yet, but they're moving in that direction and they're taking up the family business.
I would argue that by focusing on that, you end up with a far more Ghostbusters movie than by focusing on ghost busting in a Ghostbusters movie. Which, again, that sounds weird, but the core of
But it's the formula that made the originals so good.
Yeah, it was focus on the small shit. The small shit is what matters. The big shit, weirdly, is the backdrop. It's the small moments that make you go, that was amazing. Like one of the smallest, but a scene that I absolutely love from the original Ghostbusters is, if I remember everything correctly, it was when they went to the hotel to deal with the ghosts there. It's like their first big job.
Oh, the scene before, they're literally sitting having Chinese food when Ray says, oh, that was all of the last of the petty cash. So they are flat broke, first big job, yes.
And they go there, and they're turning on their proton packs for the first time. And there's the line that, well, we do all have unregulated nuclear generators on our back. And all of them step away from each other as they turn them on.
Yeah, they kind of back into each individual corner of the elevator.
Yeah, it doesn't do shit, but that is an extremely human reaction to being reminded that this is dangerous. Even if
in
you
Frozen
know,
Empire, they have little moments like that, and that's why, again, Sanguine, it made me so. It was so jarring to have two movies kind of playing at the same time in it, because they had elements of what stuff like that, but they fumbled the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt with your train of thought there, but that's my thoughts of Frozen Empire.
Those small moments that really leave the impact and make you go, that was good. I fucking love that. Because
and they were so out of their element.
It was something that you could actually connect with. Yeah. Because despite, at the very least, Egon knowing that stepping away didn't do a goddamn thing for them,
he did it anyway.
It's still that human reaction of, let me get away.
And it's again, building on the small things, they're so out of their element. Even the one of them that's the super genius ego, they're so out of their element when trying to track down Slimer, and they're, Ray gets slimed, and Venkman is kind of like, out of his mind. But in the end, they come together. We came, we saw, we kicked his ass. The false bravado, the little things. It even in that one, like the capturing of Slimer really didn't have an impact on the big picture. And it's still fed into the character development, the development of the story and of the big picture, even though you didn't know it at that very moment the first time you watched the movie. Mm-hmm. It is one of the breadcrumbs that leads to this loaf that they discover. My analogy, my metaphors tonight are really weird. Sorry.
But you need to have those small moments, because those small moments are what make the big moments actually fucking matter. They're what makes it so that you give a shit about the big moments, and so that the big moments feel worthwhile. If you don't have those small moments building up to the big moment, the big moment is visually impressive, but it just kind of leaves you with a, okay. That was big. I could tell they wanted me to feel something. But yeah, it was big. That's the impact that it leaves, rather than, wow, this is an awesome world. And this is where Star Wars fucked up as well. Because when you look at old Star Wars, the original trilogy was, again, it had this massive overarching story as the backdrop of the characters interacting with each other. And what they did in the original trilogy was they started with, you're focusing on Luke. And you're going to like Luke. And then, by you liking Luke, they're able to more easily convince you to like the other characters as well. You might have thought, well, Han Solo was really cool, but you liked Luke. And then you found out more about Han Solo, and you saw Han Solo and Luke interacting. And you liked Han Solo, not just because of Han Solo, but because of Han Solo and Luke's dynamic. And
well, that's an important key in the archetypal hero's journey, in that the compatriots that he makes along the way, and himself or herself or whatever, have to have that chemistry, that interplay that complements one another.
Yep. And so often in movies now, they try to rush everything.
Oh, everything is instant gratification.
Which, that's where they're really fucking up, even with the established series. When they're going with Marvel. Marvel started trying to shove too many characters, too many places, without giving any of the characters breathing room.
Yep.
Then you add on the bad writing on top of that, and the horrendous actors, and the really shitty characters, and you end up with absolutely no chance that anyone will like them.
X-Men 97, the revitalized cartoon, is a prime example of that. And without giving any spoilers, it's that ham-fisted, okay, you know, we're gonna pick 5-6 storylines from the comic books, those 5-6 notes of storyline, and we're just gonna ham-fist it into this 30-minute episode, and you're gonna fucking love every minute. And it's just like, what are you doing? Why is it that you have all of this source material to pick from, and yet you have to throw in 5-6 at a time? If you were competent, which obviously they are not, you'd be able to play one storyline or reimagine one of those storylines, but keep it its own storyline. You don't need the Executioner song and Days of Future Past and this and that all in one episode. And obviously there's only been the 3 episodes released, but that's, even the original series didn't do that. They might have left you a breadcrumb or an Easter egg, as people like to call them, you know, just a little something in the corner of the screen, or a throwaway piece of dialogue, has nothing to do. But but our main focus, everything that's important, the dialogue, the characters, how they're advancing, how they're interacting, is all for the Phoenix Saga. It's not Phoenix Saga and Executioner song and this and that, because it's too much. It's like you were saying, the there's no patience. It's all boom, 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 boom. And that's the essence of member berries. That notion of, oh, remember this? Remember that character? Remember this storyline? Remember when that happened between these characters? I don't want to get too frazzled, but it's that sort of TikTok-y generation, the instant shorts, the the prime, and this has been they've done psychological studies on this already, not peer reviewed or anything. They've just been sifting through the data. Is a lot of the reason why people don't want to go to the movie theaters. Like the younger generation don't want to go to something like a movie theater. They don't want to sit in the theater for 2 hours. They want their stories in 30-second bites, like boom, boom, boom. Anything longer than 30, 40 seconds, and they're just like, eh.
See, that doesn't quite work, because when you look at the media that they are consuming, it's just not American media anymore. Look at the popularity of anime. There's absolutely people that are telling amazing stories, and anime has some fantastic storytelling.
Yeah.
And those are more popular than ever. The number of people that are talking about their favorite anime and what's happening in their favorite anime is skyrocketing. We have fewer movies that have that sort of cultural impact, but I think that's mainly because the movies have been really shit writing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go Pop.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I've stopped watching movies in the past like 8 years. I have not seen a new movie at all.
Mhm.
And it's not that I do have a short attention span, admittedly, but it's not just that. It's like, I don't know how to fully explain it. Like, everything's being spoon-fed to you.
Yeah.
And everything's extremely obvious. Like, I love to watch like really old-timey movies, like black and white ones, because even though they didn't show a lot of blood or gore or like horror, like they had a lot of suspense and building up, and you had to guess what was going on a little bit more. It was a little more psychological than just like someone ripped someone's throat out. You know what I mean?
And
like,
Of course.
you know who the killer is in a movie in like the first 5 seconds nowadays. You know, like, it's so blatantly obvious all the time. And
that plays into something that I was just about to mention, which is the writers seem to want to act like no one knows the character, so they always need to do an origin. But everyone knows the character so that they don't have to do any work to make you like the character. You just have to tell them where they came from. And then that's all the character introduction. That's all you get to learn about the character. You saw their origin. Let's fucking go. Shit's blowing up. They have to go save the world. Look at them save the world. Look at them get in this fight. More shit's blowing up. Oh, they have to go over there and do this. And now more shit's blowing up. And they have to go over there.
Because last Saturday we talked about Bullet, Stephen McQueen, cinematic masterpiece, incredibly influential, extremely amazing, well-crafted, not only piece of art, but piece of entertainment, because the two aren't mutually exclusive. You can have one that leans a little bit more one side, the other, whatever. And I don't remember the exact amount, but it was something ridiculous that's unheard of today, in that the first like 17, 18 minutes of the movie, there's no dialogue. It's world building, it's character development through just watching, from just visually experiencing what's on the screen. And to your point, Poppy, yes, attention spans might be a little bit lower, but with that being said, quality in Hollyweird has definitely been just going down. And to your point, Sanguine, the explosion of not just anime, but even more so in manga, is the availability. I'm not taking away from some of the quality of this stuff, and it's also very culturally new to a lot of people, so that's enticing. But the availability to be able to just, oh, I'm on Crunchyroll or F Movie or whatever, and even Netflix, and be like, I'm gonna watch Spy X Family or High School of the Dead or Dragon Ball Z or like anything and everything, the classic stuff, the new stuff, just it's so readily available for consumption. But there are still churning out overall a better quality product. Even the middling product is still miles better than the middling products that are coming out of Hollyweird. But when you do, when you do, it doesn't matter where the media is. I've always held on to the notion that the amount of crap. Back in my day, it was probably about 85% of all entertainment was crap. Today, it's closer to 95, 98%, which, okay. And the reason, Poppy, I watch so much crap is because not only am I obviously a huge cinephile, but when I do find those gems, they sparkle all the brighter.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like I have my daughter's boyfriend's mom likes to hang out with me a lot, and she goes to movies a lot, so I go with her occasionally. And like, okay, the one they made on Elvis recently, not the one on Priscilla, but the one from Elvis' point of view. There was like really loud noises and flashing and like montages of like he was, I don't know, it was just crazy shit just blurting throughout the movie, which was absolutely not needed in this movie whatsoever. Like out of nowhere, there would just be like loud noises and flashing lights and bright colors and like weird high pitched sounds, and then it would just go back to normal. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? Why was that in the movie?
Modern cinema would try to find a way of fitting in an explosion to 12 Angry Men.
And I don't know, like
Mr. Smith goes to Washington and blows up the White House.
Hey, I like 12 Angry Men. That's a good movie.
Yeah, it is. And again, the reason why it is as impactful as it is they gave it breathing room. It wasn't everything all at once. Had fun processing this fucker. It was, you'd get information, and then there would be some tension, and then it would kind of calm down, and then you'd get more information, and then there'd be more tension, and then it would kind of calm down. And you need those calm down points in between things.
Yeah.
You need that moment of, oh, okay. And you process what's happened before that point.
It's what Villeneuve had said why it was 4 years in between part 1 and part 2 of Dune, is because he was like, no, people need time to digest and live with this movie. He wasn't going to do the same thing as I think he was alluding to, very specifically Disney and Star Wars, Marvel, where it's just like bam, 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 bam. Here's a new product. Don't question it, consume, and just consume, and then get ready for next product, like they say on Red Letter Media.
I also have the issue of just, it seems like a lot of things are just redoing movies, like over and over, or we'll do the same movie but in a different, instead of animation, it'll be make it look real, or AI, or claymation. It's just like redoing the same story over and over, or not adding it, or they,
just for the sake of doing it. Sometimes, Poppy, Avatar: The Last Airbender does not need a fucking redo. It is so sorry, I'm getting a little excited about this. It was so goddamn perfect of a show. You don't need to anything you do will be so vastly inferior to it. Obviously, the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong was pure crap. This latest thing was just like, I'm watching it going, why does this even exist? There's no point.
Since
you do it for the sake of doing it, and that makes you as a showrunner, as a creative, air quotes, creative mind behind some of this shit, makes you a completely vapid, worthless person.
Yeah. Oh, my big thing is I want them to stop trying to make animes into real life people. Stop it. It never works. It has never worked. Every single time they do it, it's weird, and it just doesn't fit. Like, and maybe if you tried to make a real life, like real human being thing into an anime, that might translate a little better. But on the reverse, it's just,
well, there are live action shows and movies that are heavily inspired. It's like watching anime because they use a lot of the same story techniques and character techniques that the Japanese use in their anime and manga, but it's not trying to replicate, like Dragon Ball Z or One Piece or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you make a very good point in that.
Yeah, like I tried to watch the like first 5 minutes of the Full Metal Alchemist one, and I was just like, no, can't. Right?
Yeah, I don't think they've
couldn't do it.
made any sort of live. And I'm not the biggest anime guy, like fucking weebs ruin everything. I like a good story and a good expression of that story. So whatever the medium might be doesn't really matter to me as much. But I've never seen, in my mind, a good adaptation of something that was like anime into live action. It's never worked. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, I don't think it could ever work.
I disagree. I think that the problem that they have is they cast things wrong, and then they try to do things that will never be able to work based on how they're trying to do them. There is a way of doing a Cowboy Bebop that would be amazing. They
but
sure as fuck didn't do that. What they did instead was they miscast everyone, and then they went, we're going to try to make some shots as much like the anime as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So we're going to have you make facial expressions no person has ever made in ways that no person would ever make them, rather than taking the story beats and the characterization. They took the animated style of movement and they went, we're going to do the animated style and then we're going to change the story elements. No, you keep the story elements and you change the animated presentation.
Yes.
And you can make it work amazingly. And you can do the opposite as well, which is there have been a bunch of different animes that are based off of a fantastic Kurosawa movie, Seven Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of animes that are Seven Samurai animes, and they work amazingly because they keep the story elements the same. So they'll always have a Kokichio character, and the Kokichio character will always be the most wild of the characters. They'll always have each of the characters there in a way that makes sense for the world that they made in that version, and that keeps true to their original characterization. That's what you need to do. You need to keep the characters the same. You need to keep story beats the same. So if it's the story that I always go back to when it comes to what I mean by story beats is the Hitchhiker's Guide. Because the Hitchhiker's Guide, every version of the Hitchhiker's Guide is different than every other version of the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
And it's done so purposefully.
Yes.
So that you can listen to the radio show and enjoy the radio show. And then you can go and you can read the book. And you know the characters because the characters are all the same. You know the restaurant at the end of the universe because that still exists in both versions. You know Megalithea because that still exists in both versions. But how they get between these set locations and these set key points changes.
Yeah.
So you get the same story, but different. And that's what they would need to do in order to do them properly. They would need to tell the same story, but different, and actually know what the fuck the story was about. That's where the latest Avatar shit the bed, because there's one episode from the anime that they completely bastardized in the show. First off, they're trying to smash a bunch of episodes into each episode. Stop that shit. Give it time to breathe. Don't just mash all these stories together. Yep. Give them time to breathe. They'll do amazingly. Second of all, if there's something that is crucial to character development, do not fucking change it. When you have, for example, the entire story behind the prince. is a very important fucking story.
Oh, it's just as important as Aang's story.
Yeah,
And well,
You need
Team
to have
Avatar
it.
as a whole. But yeah.
you need to have it be that he's at the start trying to re-earn his honor. And you need to have it where he's trying to get his father to like him. So when you have, in the start of the show, the father showing that he's sad for having beaten his son and having burned his son, that ruins that. You've just destroyed that entire vital section of the story.
Which then destroys the entirety of the character.
Yep.
Everything that made that character great stems from that start. Like you were saying earlier, have to start small, because when you first watch Avatar the Last Airbender for the first time, Zuko's just bad. He's just a bad dude.
And then over time you learn why he's a bad dude. And then you figure out, oh, he isn't actually a bad dude. He's trying to do the right thing.
No, he still is a bad dude, but he as a character realizes he is a bad dude and actively starts waking up little bits and pieces, hesitation, till you get to the top part where he finally realizes, am I the baddie?
I would slightly disagree. It's not that from his perspective, he wasn't a bad dude up until he has that moment. So when you see him, the way that he interacts with the Avatar group, with Aang and Sokka, all of them, that is bad. The way that he interacts with the people that the Fire Nation is fighting is bad. But the way that he interacts with people that aren't combatants, with people that aren't against him, there's very early on signs that he's pissed off, he's hurt, but he has honor. And you need to show that, because that was what causes him. No,
because Sanguine, you're one of the big driving forces of what the straw that breaks the camel's back into allowing him to realize how much of a dick he's been was the fact he was being a dick to the one person who was there for him and letting him be the man that he discovers himself in his uncle Iroh, as opposed to everyone else who had expectations for him or wanted to push him in a way or whatever.
But there was still, like I said, there were those moments throughout where he was doing the most right thing that he could.
Yes,
where he wasn't being
his perception
vengeful. He wasn't being an asshole, which would have been easy. There were other characters that were that way.
He tried to be professional. He tried to be, again, what others were expecting of him, what his father was expecting of him, what he thought his uncle was, and but as the show goes on, little points of like hesitation, or not full on questioning, but just those little points of hesitation, you're right, are very conducive to that flow of the character.
Yeah, I would. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't like that they made it where Aang was serious a lot faster in the series, because like that was a big arc for him, was that he was 12, he wanted to act 12, he wanted to be a kid, and then he had to work his way up to, okay, I gotta go save the world. Like they just stuck it in there.
Traumatized any number of times, and it helps him snap out of that for sure, Poppy.
And
you can't run away from your problems. That was like one of the big messages of the entire first book.
And
well, I mean, that's a thing that a lot of people forget, is that they are all children. Even like I forget her name. God damn it, I'm bad with names. The like bad one. They end up fighting at the end. His sister,
Azula.
Yeah, she's 14.
Yep.
Like these are all little kids fighting these giant battles. So of course,
Yeah, I think
there's
Sokka's
going to
the
be part.
older of all of the like main characters at 16 or 17. I
But
think
he's
he's one of the
Yeah.
oldest ones.
he's also the one that works the hardest to keep people from being crushed when it comes to the seriousness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And that's one of the main aspects of his character. Which, again, when they fuck up characterization, it drives me crazy. And when they have a moment that is crucial, because there's an episode in the anime, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the Spirit of the Forest episode,
Mm-hmm.
where there's the bear that is the spirit of the forest, and it starts rampaging because of the destruction of the forest. And it's this massive, functionally unstoppable force
Yeah.
because it's a spirit of nature, and nature is pissed.
Yeah. It's angry. It's lost control. It's feeding into its own negative emotion.
And that episode, when you look at that episode and then you look at the series as a whole, that episode is Aang is the bear. Aang is the spirit of the forest in the entire series. And he goes about the series the same way that that bear went through that episode. Because it starts off with the bear being extremely happy-go-lucky and not taking things seriously when you are learning about the history of the spirit of the forest. It was just happy. It was enjoying life.
Mm.
And then things start getting destroyed around it, and it becomes more pissed off, more pissed off, more pissed off, until eventually it's this unstoppable force. And watch the Aang throughout the series, especially when he goes into Avatar state in a rage.
Mm.
Tell me that he isn't an unstoppable force of nature.
Oh yeah,
When
and
he's-
again, one of his key defining moments is the fact that he's terrified of that power.
Yep. And then how does the episode with the spirit of the forest end? Does anyone remember?
He calms the animal. He calms the spirit.
How?
Oh fuck! I just watched this the other week too. I don't remember the specific.
He gives the
Talk to it.
spirit an acorn. Hope of everything being able to rebuild.
Right.
And what happens at the end of the series? Especially, there's the point in the final battle where he is rage.
Oh, he would have killed Azulon.
He would have killed anyone that he needed to. And then he had that moment of there's hope.
Yeah.
And that's when everything calms down again. The entire story of Avatar is in that one episode with the spirit of the forest being Aang through the series.
Mm-hmm. They have a couple of really good great, like that one is top tier. They have a lot of good episodes like that again, like you were saying, echoes the entire story in one episode. Again, something that makes it so just fantastic. I wanted to like back up a little bit because we were talking about the getting the beats right when you make something. Chronicle is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Incredible if you haven't seen it. It's not your stereotypical or your typical Batman, Captain America, whatever movie. It's very much grassroots, very much low level kind of characters. They're just a couple common kids, but it takes, and the director admits to this, one of his biggest influences of that movie are Akira and Carrie, for various reasons. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I mean. But the fact that it's the main character that you don't really realize is the main character until well into the movie, he's hitting all those beats of Tetsuo. all of those beats, and that's what when you, obviously it's not a direct retelling of Akira, but it's using those beats to put that type of storytelling that's very prototypical in a lot of anime, especially with the hero's journey kind of monster within battle. That they did it really well in a live. Obviously, there was CGI, but you have part of the apex of the movie where they're doing that Superman kind of fight in the sky, that Dragon Ball Z smash, smash, smash. But it's done sparingly.
Earned it.
They've earned it through the entire movie, and it's done just sparingly enough to not be too ostentatious like it is in Dragon Ball Z, and keeping it grounded in the fact that this is still live action storytelling. It's not fully animated. Again, even though it's CGI, it's still supposed to be, and they can learn. They have. I mean, some people can learn from doing that kind of stuff, because we do get those nuggets now and then of really good storytelling, but they don't get near the attention that the big movies, that a lot of the grievance grifters, because we're so hyper connected these days, that those people and everybody else are constantly talking about. It's like, dude, we get it. Marvel sucks. Disney Star Wars sucks. We get it. Go watch something that something else. Whether you like it or hate it, whether it was good or bad, doesn't matter. Just go do something else.
See, when it comes down to getting characters right and getting characters wrong, it is really easy to show a perfect example of each with the same character. Because
yes,
when you look at the old Reeves Superman movies, they get the character of Clark Kent. And I've said this before.
Yeah.
Superman is Clark Kent. It is not. Clark Kent is the synonym that he uses in order to get by. Like Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman. She takes on her persona to interact with the world, but at the core of her, she's Wonder Woman. Bruce Wayne, weirdly, is not. Batman is not Bruce Wayne.
No, that's his alter, his fake persona.
Yeah.
He is Batman.
This is something that was touched on rather well, in my opinion, when it came to the comics. Because there's he's in Wonder Woman's Lasso of Truth. Who are you? I'm Batman. No fucking lie. Beautiful. That is who he is. That is who Batman is. Batman is Batman. He has to mild himself when he becomes Bruce Wayne. He has to pretend to be Bruce Wayne. Superman is Clark Kent. His morality is Clark Kent. Everything that he wants to do is Clark Kent. But he does put on an act when he's Clark Kent, because he acts a lot more timid. He kind of shrinks
he can't display his power.
Up.
Yeah,
he shrinks himself up. But
with good reason. He's protecting his family.
And he is Clark Kent.
Yes.
Throughout the entirety of it. And that's something that is really well done when it comes to the Reeves Superman movies. And they also do an amazing job of showing how no one realizes that the hulking country boy news reporter is actually Superman, because there's one scene when he's debating whether he's going to tell Lois Lane, and you see him go from how he portrays himself when he's Clark Kent to how he portrays himself when he's Superman to how he portrays himself when he's Clark Kent to how he portrays himself when he's Superman. You see that shift, and in that moment, it's oh, that's how.
Mm-hmm.
That's how no one realizes it. Because you see him go from slouching, kind of hunched, and a very timid posture to standing up straight, chin out, to
Tits out, jaw
reverting
that could
back.
cut steel. Yeah.
Yeah. To reverting back to kind of hiding again to nope, I'm going to come out. And you see that in the character. And they did a beautiful job throughout the entirety of the Reeves movies of making it clear Superman is Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a spot on depiction of a character. You want the exact opposite of that? Man of Steel.
Yeah.
That is not Superman. That's some weird, bizarro alternative universe of the character. Because he does not have Clark Kent's moralities. He does not have Clark Kent's way of going through things. He's an alien, which is why that one doesn't identify as Clark Kent. That one identifies as Kal-El.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is entirely wrong. That is not
antithetical to
Superman.
the entirety of the character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're totally right.
And it's the reason why those movies are so fucking boring. Because if you try to tell Superman's story as an alien coming to the world and having to fight against these powerful beings, there's nothing that you ever have to worry about. There's nothing that you ever have to think about, because there's no one that is going to be so powerful that divine level power Superman won't be able to beat. Which is why when you look at Superman and you look at Superman done well, it's never, well, will he be able to fist fight Lex Luthor? Of course he can fist fight Lex Luthor. Anyone can fist fight Lex Luthor that's a superhero. The thing that made Lex Luthor his villain, his nemesis, was not Lex Luthor's power being comparable. It was that he could fuck over Superman because Lex was human. And being human, he knew how to fuck with humans. He knew that he could put Superman into positions where Superman would have to choose. It wasn't just that, well, I can just beat this down. It was, how can I do this the right way? That's what made Superman amazing. That's what makes him a fantastic character. When he has to think through everything and figure out how he can do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Mom and Pa Kent are so crucial to Superman's character. Because in the comics, in the old animated series, in all the best depictions of Superman, whenever he's really unsure of himself, he doesn't call Batman. He doesn't call Wonder Woman. He doesn't call any of the other heroes.
He goes home.
He calls Ma and Pa Kent.
Yeah. He gets grounded. No, I don't mean like sent to your room. I mean, feet to the ground, he becomes
Brought
grounded
back to
again
himself.
because one of the things that they can use as a weakness of Superman is that unsurety, and he needs to go back to his upbringing, his realization that Clark Kent, Superman are the same person.
Yep, and the best part about it is the vast majority of the times when he goes back to Mom Pa Kent and says, I'm having a problem, and he's trying to figure out the solution, the vast majority of the time, their answer is, Clark, honey, you know what the answer is. It's going to suck, but we can get through that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you need to do. And he does. Again, that's what makes him a great character. It's that uncertainty, but also deep down, actually knowing what is the right thing to do. It's just, he gets scared.
Yeah. He needs to step away for a minute.
Well, no, it's
and come
not
to
just,
terms. Well, come to terms with what he already knows.
It's not just that he needs to step away for a moment and come to terms with what he already knows. It's he's doing one of the most human things that anyone can possibly do. I'm scared. I need comfort.
Yeah. Also, it's really like Superman's not one of my favorites just because he is so overpowered, but it is a good thing that it very balances out because he is so overpowered, but they use his, conscious, like his feeling guilty or am I doing the right or wrong thing or am I using this too much, to balance that out where he's not just basically, overpowering everyone and everything all the time because at that point you're a villain, not a superhero.
Yeah. Which is something that they've gone into in the comics before. What if Superman didn't have his conscience? And that's how you end up with the Superman that conquers a world.
Yeah.
That's how you end up with the Superman that...
Under a red sun.
Yep.
Which was amazing. He lands, for those who don't know, he lands in the USSR as opposed to Nebraska, gets raised in the USSR under communism, and he takes over the world.
He's reported. So when he's found, it gets back to the government, and the government oversees him, his rearing, and they treat him like he's a weapon. It isn't that he's raised by just the common person. He's raised by the Soviet government.
Mm-hmm.
Because Superman isn't the ridiculously powerful alien. As I've said, Superman is Clark Kent, and Clark Kent is a good, honest, well-raised farm boy. The only difference is that he has the power to do the right thing, where a good chunk of the time, the people that are exactly like him don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's the appeal of the story.
Yeah, it's also really good to see something that is so overpowered also have a lot of self-doubt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that's what makes his stories, when they're done well, what they are.
But it also makes it hard to do them well because he's so physically powerful. You have to write it. You have to write him into a predicament or a challenge in a way that's still believable. Like you were saying with the Reeves Lex Luthor, outplaying his mind, messing with him, using his humanity, even though genetically he's not human, but ethically, morally, socially, he is human. He's very human. He's more human than most people that are actually in the comic book, and that includes even his love interest in Lois Lane. He's more human than Lois Lane, which is crazy. And for me, the best part about Red Sun, because yes, he gets raised by the government. He's the favored son of Joseph Stalin. Blah 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 blah. And one day, Superman just says, "Nope," and turns Stalin into red mist and takes over everything because the lessons he learned were that that sort of Heinlein-esque of all authority is derived from power. He has all the power. Why is he listening to the powerless? He has the power. That means he has the moral authority, and he is superior to everyone, physically, ethically, everything, and that corrupts him and blah 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 blah. I love that story because it's even though he becomes this super weaponized thing, they take him down almost the same way that they would take down normal Superman, in that they had to outthink, outmaneuver, outplay, bring him out of his own mind to compromise him. Very different ways. But I think, God, it's been a while since I've read the comic book and seen the animated.
And
But,
you might,
I believe he Batman set up the plan, but then he rips Batman in half, which was, but he laid out the plan. He knew he was going to die, Batman did, but he laid out the plan to be able to undo the Red Sun, which was a great way of re-envisioning Superman.
and you might remember the name of the movie. It was done a little bit ago, and it was functionally, what if Superman was found by an abusive household?
Oh, you mean? Oh no, that wasn't Brightburn.
Was it not? That sounds like
Brightburn
It might have
is
been
where it was more of a horror movie, and it turns into this alien, basically tries to kill Mom, Pa, Ken. They're not abusive.
oh, so it was just he was bad from birth.
Yeah, I mean they just what if kind of scenario, but completely changed everything so that they take away the nature versus nurture kind of, well, not take it away, they just change it. Because obviously the traditional Superman, it's both nature versus nurture. Nature, because of what we learn of his parents, good people, just people, and also raised by good people, just people. Whereas this one, they're normal people, whatever, but he just once he starts realizing what he can do, he just fucks with people, and it's kind of like, so are you saying that he's just a bad egg? What's
That
going
would
on
have
here?
to be the way that one plays out psychologically. Because
It was interesting. It wasn't a great movie. It was interesting.
I thought
I
it
don't
was
think
more
they were-
interesting. I thought it was that they were abusive, because that would be the exact opposite of
No,
Superman.
because I think they do everything they can to acclimate him to life, and he still turns bad. But I don't remember it that well. So maybe they were.
So if they weren't in that, and anyone listening wants an idea for a story that you could run really fucking rampant with, Superman, abusive household, boom, done. You keep it where Superman is a reflection of who he was raised by, because there were actually two different versions of communist Superman. There was the Red Sun that you were talking about, where he goes completely fucked and evil. There was another version, if I remember correctly, where he was raised by just common people, and then he was given over to the government. So he had morality from that, and then he was given over to the government, and he saw the abuses of that, and it shifted him in a different direction again. And if I remember correctly, that one ends up defecting. So he becomes American. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can tell a Superman story and make it a unique story. All you do is you change the setting in which he develops. Because that's the core of Superman. The core of Superman is, yeah, nature gives him all of his powers. Nurture made him.
I somewhat disagree in that it does that thing that like Star Trek, the good old Star Trek did in presenting it to you, the audience, and you kind of still had to weigh in yourself on it. It presented you both sides of an argument, or all the sides of it. Whereas like, they don't outright say it's because of his nature or because of his nurture of the nurturing environment, but obviously they come into play. I think that's kind of what makes it more of a compelling arc for Superman, not telling you it's simply nature and nurture. Because even under a Red Sun, they're able to give him pause because they make him question himself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still, those successful stories are still kind of, they're it's like a wave. It's swishing one way and then it's swishing the next. But it's without ever tipping over and telling you that's how it is. But I see the core of what you're saying of his nature is this. And obviously, because of the nurture, that's still part of what made him him.
Yeah, his nature is,
and I think
godlike being.
I think in Brightburn, the big key thing was not that they were abusive, but that they were terrified of him. Even from before he gets the power, he's a little different. He's a little weird, and the parents are like, this is why I didn't like the movie. Is every scene they're constantly, you get their, okay, it's good for what it's trying to do. It's not good because it's Superman or whatever, but you get that unease from these characters, and it plays into some way him being unhinged. But he's already kind of a little. I just didn't like the portrayal of Ma and Pa Kent being so uneasy all the time. It's kind of like, but that's not Ma and Pa Kent. I know you're going for something different here, Gunn, but it's not working for me. It didn't work for me. It just, maybe some choice difference. Maybe the story is just that's what it's trying to do, and I get that. But there's a point where stories like that, reimaginings, what ifs, become so far removed. It's a delicate balance. So far removed from the source material that you're trying to throw a twist into, that it just it loses all the essence of what it was, what you're trying to draw.
That was
on
kind of what I was saying, that you can take the base idea of how Superman came to be, and you can tell an endless number of stories based on that are different and appreciably different just by changing an aspect of it.
Yeah.
So the Red Sun rather than Ma and Pa Kent, Soviet government, with other versions. You could have it where you have him arrive at different times in US history, at different times in world history. Could you imagine a Superman raised by the Mongols?
Mm-hmm. Or
That would be
what
fucking
about
interesting?
what about by the southern during the South during the Civil War? Or
Yep.
What about the British during the Revolutionary War?
Yep.
Like all these
Or-
crazy cool things that they could, and it starts with the nugget. And like we were saying earlier, do it slow, let it build, keep the essence of that character, but things are just slightly different to make the overall product just like different enough, but still it has that essence. You can look
And
at that and be like, that's still a Superman story. That's still
if you want one that would be really fucking weird to go for, Superman slaps down in Jerusalem and gets raised by King Baldwin. Think how fucking weird history would get. Superman, the Crusader King.
That was the Leper King.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, Kingdom of Heaven. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That was
Crusader Superman. Are you?
that was
kidding
the
me?
Leper King that, by all accounts, from the Crusaders as well as from the Muslims that he fought, he was an extremely honorable man to fight. So, sticking him in a situation like that, and also it has an element that I've said every time: if you're going to kill Superman's parents, you can't make it something that Superman can stop. You have to make it something that Superman has no ability to deal with.
What, like his dad running into a tornado?
That doesn't work.
I
His
know,
dad-
it's so fucking. It was the
Yeah.
dumbest thing I've ever fucking seen in a Superman
It was the dumbest shit.
story.
But in the Reeves movies, his father died of cancer.
Yeah.
That
Well,
works.
That's why I think Injustice did fairly well in getting Superman to turn evil, I guess. With the Scarecrow gas.
Do go on so that everyone knows what you're talking about if they aren't familiar.
Oh, well, in Injustice, he was tricked into thinking he was fighting somebody else, but it was Lois Lane, and she had a bomb in her or something like that, if I recall, right? Yeah, and then he found out it was the Joker did it, and he kills the Joker, and then he pretty much just takes over everything. Says, no more you guys can't control yourselves, so I'm going to control you.
That was the one where he played Batman, right? Because Batman let the Joker live.
No, Batman wanted the Joker to live, and so
No,
Batman,
I know. What I'm saying is, Superman in part blames Batman for his ineffective handling of the Joker, and that causes a friction, a rift.
Yeah, it like a
But
Civil War
there's
type
so many
thing.
stories. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to.
No, it's part of it. Because it's two parts. It's like there's the comic part, and then there's like the video game part.
Right.
The comic part goes into a lot more stories than the video game. But yeah, essentially it causes a rift, and Batman goes underground. And then they have a rift where a different set of Justice League comes in and corrects Superman.
I do like there's another spin off of that where rather than Superman going evil, and rather than Lois Lane dying there, Lois Lane almost dies. And Batman's able to keep Superman from killing the Joker. And he says that he's going to go take Joker to Arkham Asylum. So he starts going to Arkham Asylum with the Joker. And the entire time, the Joker is kind of trussed up in the passenger seat as Batman's just calmly talking through everything that happened. And at the end of the conversation, he's talking about how he's tried to help the Joker before. He's tried to make it so that the Joker would be able to be functionally fixed. But the Joker has resisted every effort, and now he's taken it too far. Because he almost drove Superman to kill. And the moment that he crossed that line once, Batman wasn't sure that he would ever be able to come back from that. And then he reaches over and he breaks the Joker's neck. He goes to Arkham, turns himself in. And that's where that section ended. And the rest of the story was everyone finds out Bruce Wayne was Batman. And the only reason why they found out was Batman realized that the Joker had decided to try to fuck with Superman and wasn't going to let up because he saw that same unshakable moral aspect that he originally saw in Batman, only he saw a crack in Superman. So while Batman would have been able to deal with it, he wasn't sure that Superman would be able to. And he didn't want to see Superman turn. So he broke his own morals to save his friend. And to save everyone else from his friend. And yeah, Jonathan in Smallville dies of a heart attack. When it comes to killing off Superman's family, you have to do it through something that Superman could not have stopped. Or, if you really want to fuck with him, make it something that he could have stopped, but he wasn't there.
Yeah, in the pre-crisis on Infinite Earths, he dies. Pa Kent dies, cancer. Shortly after Clark finishes high school, in post-Crisis of Infinite Earths, he's just alive, and I think he's eventually killed by Brainiac. But that's because, you know, if there's, again, one way to try to outdo Superman, it's to not fist fight him, but to cause him to
It's to break
not lose
him,
control, but like
break him morally.
Yeah, psychologically, morally, even though Superman can think very fast, Brainiac, Lex, they're still smarter than him. Or at least smart enough that they can use Superman against him. Cleverer, thank you.
Might not be smarter, but
although Brainiac is smarter than Superman.
Yeah. And depending on the Lex Luthor is as well.
Yeah.
Because in certain iterations, Lex Luthor is the smartest person alive, and he's like, what is it? The
Super
Omega
genius.
level intellect?
Yeah.
Is the highest
He's
intellect?
so smart, like it's incomprehensible how smart he is. Yes.
Yeah. And it tends to be that is traded back and forth between Lex and Batman.
And one of Lex's, what made Lex such a great character, great villain, was his failing in that he would try to use his intellect to devise a way to overpower or go punch to punch with Superman, and it failed him.
Because Lex Luthor, one of the reasons why, again, Superman comics and Superman stories were fascinating was Lex Luthor, because my favorite versions of Lex Luthor are not Lex Luthor is evil. It's Lex Luthor has one very specific goal, and that is to make it so that humanity doesn't need to rely on anyone else.
On some alien trash.
So it's this insane and slightly beautiful, if done in other stories, you could very easily make it heroic character aspect that he's trying to make it so that humanity is able to be self-sufficient and able to care for itself. It doesn't need to be taken care of. It can be liberated from some other being telling them what they need to do or what they should do or what's right to do. And it would just be man in control of himself.
It's one of the character traits they folded into Mark in Invincible that I find compelling in the character. It's just a shame that the show is kind of suffering from a little bit of the wokeness, but it's still very good. It's still a very good fresh take, not fresh take, but different take on the whole superhero genre, while still being that kind of superhero genre.
And like I said, it's an aspect that is very easy to have something be heroic with that aspect.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite sci-fi series is the Commonwealth Saga.
Oh yeah.
By Peter F. Hamilton. My favorite character in that series is motherfucking Gore Benali. Dude is mental in the most glorious fashion. And his entire thing is he has an order of shit that he cares about. Humanity, his family, his business. That's his order. If something is a threat to humanity, he will throw everything into getting that taken care of. Even if it costs elements of his family, even if it costs elements of his business. If his family is in trouble, he will damn everything other than the race as a whole in order to save his family. And if his business is in trouble, he'll damn anything other than his family and the race as a whole to save it. And he's very much a humanity needs to be able to stand alone. If we have allies, that's amazing. I love having allies. But we need to be able to stand alone.
It's been amazing to me to see that kind of notion being used on both the antagonist and protagonist side of stories. Because the spirit of that is what it is. It's kind of neutral. It's how various storytellers use that in execution from the characters that kind of informs you, the reader, the viewer. Well, is that a just thing or a manipulative thing? Something that comes to mind because I love it so much, Star Trek Enterprise. Near the end of the series, there's that whole humanity first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's two sides to that coin in that the Vulcans, although there are some characters who throughout the series kind of try to impede, for the most part, they're not giving humanity anything. They're simply observing as humanity finds its own way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the humanity first people, they take that to the other extreme and say, we need to stand on our own. No, fuck all these aliens. They're gonna make us impure. Blah 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 blah. And it's again why these core topics, even though they're very much science fiction, we've never met an alien.
Mm-hmm.
But we use analogs to them. We'll use animals or mutants or the superheroes or whatever. And that's what makes the successful telling of moral tales entertaining. You, the viewer, I'm going to leave you that trail. You're still going to have to come to the conclusion. And you know what? Sometimes you might go, yeah, those humanity first guys, they do have a couple good points, but their execution and their premise still in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I was saying with the Vulcans, yeah, there can be bad actors, but the spirit of that was actually good. And it actually helped to elevate humanity on the fact that, yes, you can stand on your own. And yes, they do have quite a bit of value because they can self-actualize their potential.
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Yeah. And like I said, if you ever want a good sci-fi series, if you haven't read it, The Commonwealth by Peter F. Hamilton.
I have to write that down.
It's amazing. And
I've heard of it. And I think you've recommended it to me before. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Probably countless times.
I'm rereading some of the Dune books now, and it's kind of like, cool. I haven't read Dune in a long ass time.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that character, Gorban Ali, I want that man to be like part of my family, to be my best friend. I just want to be near fucking Gorban Ali. He's ridiculous and glorious in the way that it is the closest to going homo, but is still no homo. Dude's awesome.
What was the name of the book again?
It's The Commonwealth Saga
Commonwealth.
by Peter F. Hamilton. And probably the best part about the Commonwealth series is that, unlike with a lot of sci-fi series where they go, oh yeah, these problems that we're currently having, they're just going to be gone.
Wait, did they
We're going-
make this into a show?
I don't think that they did.
Okay.
If they did, please do let me know. I'll have to see if it's any good. But there's...
What was that? There was another recent big sci-fi show on like Apple Plus. Harry and I talk about it all the time. I got through like 1 or 2 episodes. I couldn't do it, but he
Mhm.
really liked the books.
But yeah, it's... The Commonwealth series doesn't pull its punches that way. It doesn't go, well, yeah, we have the debate of capitalism, socialism, communism, and all these other different systems. That's just going to be resolved as time goes on. No, it goes, that type of shit's here to stay. We're going to be arguing that into the far future.
Oh, Foundation.
Oh, Foundation. That one's also amazing in the show. Yeah, from what I hear, it was...
I couldn't get through more than the second episode. I think I turned it off halfway through the second episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You know, yeah. Again, Harry swears by the books. I'm sure that the books are probably fantastic. That's kind of the problem in that a lot of, similar problems to what we were talking about. How they translate anime or superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The source material is still fantastic, but the stuff that's getting pumped out is not good. Not good at all.
And the problem
And-
with go
And
ahead.
we've seen a lot of these examples time and time again, and I don't. At this point, this is why I'm kind of liking this Gamersgate 2.0 going on, because they're doing what they should have done the first time around, was you know, point out the tactics that these people do and push against it. Like, because if we all recognize that it's ridiculous, it's ridiculous. Like, that's
Mhm.
it's there's no reason why we need to comply with this nonsense. So I mean, that's we'll get good stuff coming down the pipeline once these people stop adhering to these weirdo ideologues.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's my 2 cents.
Well, you're entirely right.
Mhm.
So I'll pay that 2 cents.
Huh.
Do you guys know the origin?
We're just touching on like sci-fi. Yeah, almost all of it's been trash, but I would say The Expanse was fantastic. Great show. Never got around to reading the books. Dude, there's just too many books. I don't have enough time, but show fantastic. Although, again, Serenity Star 13 tells me Wheel of Time, fantastic books. That show that
God-awful
you're
show.
watching,
Do not watch it. Burn it with fire. It does not exist.
I watch it. It's tough. It's real. That's a real tough mouthful that they're making me chew to watch that, and it just sad because when I hear people talk about these books and the source material with such passion and such love.
Oh, the books, like I said, the books for that series are amazing. And it goes down even to the descriptions of characters, which is why the casting was so fucking infuriating.
Yeah.
Perrin, you said that you're watching the show. You know the guy that they have cast as Perrin.
Yeah.
So tell me, does the description of him being this hulking mass, though he's fairly intelligent, but his body is ridiculously built to the point that it looks as if cables are dancing beneath his skin as he drums his fingers on a table. Does that sound anything like the motherfucker that they cast for that?
No, he in the show he looks like some big fat mulatto guy, like you would oh god, what I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
Who is this character?
Perrin Aberoy is a character from the Wheel of Time, who in the Wheel of Time books, he's amazing. Let me see if I can pull up
where he should look more like Chris Hemsworth on steroids as opposed to the way he looks there.
No.
Which
Chris Hemsworth is small. He should look.
Oh, that's what I said, on steroids. Like he should be a Hulk. Okay, correction. He should look like the Hulk, as opposed to he just looks like a. He looks like he's a big boy, but he's just big. He's not solid. He's not built. He's just.
He should look like a shorter Thorson.
Bjorn Thorson. Yeah.
Yes.
Guy who played the Mountain.
Uh-huh.
I get that. And that's what I would have liked to have seen on the screen. It fits more with what they were trying to, at least from what I know from watching the show, get with his character. But I'm obviously ripped out in looking at this guy on screen, never having read the books, didn't know that description until now, Sanguine, but knew something's wrong with this character.
Yep.
He doesn't fit. And
I'm
that
trying to
explains
find the full description because the full description is poetry. The one part that I always remember is it looked like cables writhed beneath the skin as he drummed his fingers upon the tables or upon the table.
Yeah.
Which that alone gives you an insane mental image of this dude is big. When they're described as looking like steel cables,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, he's ripped.
But
But
in the show, he's just kind of doughy. He's big.
yeah,
He looks like he's maybe like 6'6", 6'7", but that's about it. Big
Which-
bone.
that's actually taller than he's supposed to be because in the book he's about 6'1", 6'2".
Okay.
But he has just massive arms and chest. He's built because he's the blacksmith's apprentice. He's been swinging hammers since before he could remember.
Mhm.
And it shows. It goes into exquisite detail about how big this guy is. He's, if I remember correctly, his chest is compared to a barrel, and the barrel is found the lesser in the comparison at one point.
Yeah, same, like you said, same build as like Bjorn Thornson, bit shorter because Bjorn is massively tall as
Yeah.
well. But they casted somebody that looks like Hodor.
Yep.
Again, Nairn, and I've met him in real life. Great guy, sweet guy, good actor for what he did, and nothing. He played like Hodor. That's what Hodor looked like, at least when I imagined him in the book. But he's not by any means he's big and he's tall, obviously taller than I forget his name. Rain? No, not Rain.
Ren.
Ren. But he doesn't have that build. I would have liked to have seen even with Gendry, he's only like 18 or 19 there, but you can tell this guy's, because he's spent the last 3-4 years working as a blacksmith, he's not heavily cut because obviously that's a modern thing of the times, but he's big.
Yep.
He's got that
Yep.
he's got that mass on his frame that, when he says that line when he's like, oh, but I like to hear them ring when I hit them with my hammer, and you're like, yeah, because just looking at you, no homo, you look like you would swing a hammer and just like turn that kid into paste.
Mm-hmm.
A fine red mist. You wouldn't just crush him, you would eliminate his entire lineage just because of the strength that you look like you exude under, like, again, not like Ren. Obviously, there's not that corded steel kind of imagery. He's kind of a genetic freak in that way, the way you're describing how they describe him in the book.
Mm-hmm.
He's heavily like Guardians of the Galaxy when they find Thor and she's and Gamora's touching him. It's like his muscles are like Cordani steel.
Mm-hmm.
Stop touching his muscles. Like, yes,
Oh,
yes.
I found another one of the sections where
Really good
he was
way to-
briefly described.
Mm.
And he was tall and stocky enough to seem a man, and a half wider than that at his shoulders.
Yeah.
So tall, broad as hell, considering he's a man and a half wide.
So what you're saying is he's you.
Only he has longer legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite characters reading through the book because he's extremely thoughtful. And it's just this moment of holy shit when you see him get angry. Since he's normally calm, ridiculously calm.
Yeah.
But there are these, the Trollocs, because they have to have them in the show. Massive, hulking, half-human things.
Yeah.
Ridiculously strong. At the start of the story, they're like 14. And very early on, Perrin squares up with a Trolloc. And he fucking wins.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the martial skill. He was just pissed and monstrously strong.
And in your description of his persona, I can see that as being what they were trying to do. But once again, in the show, he comes off as meek, not reserved, not calm, meek, and withdrawn, not so much thoughtful, but is always perplexed by everything.
Oh,
and you can tell it's part acting, lack thereof, and part writing. And again, hearing that now, it's like, yeah, okay. Now that I you're giving me the description of the actual character, I'm like, yeah, I can see what they were trying to do. They failed miserably. It's not at all what I got from what they actually put on screen. It's what I, in my expertise as a cinephile, tried myself to draw out of that character, but again, was not what was portrayed.
One of the best parts is throughout the story, you're constantly shifting between different perspectives.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're in Perrin's mind, sometimes you're in Rand's mind, sometimes you're in Matt's mind, sometimes you're in one of the other characters. One of my favorite things is that each of the main male characters is always thinking, I wish I was like so-and-so, and it's one of the other main male characters. He always knows what to say to the girls, and he knows what... They're constantly thinking that the other ones know what they're doing, but they're all teenage boys.
See, now that I got from the show, definitely. Like, I wish I had his courage. Oh, I wish I had his ability to talk to females. Oh, I wish I was as strong as him. And that dance plays out. Yeah. They do that. They do not.
It isn't just that they wish that they were as strong as Perrin. It's all of the guys take Perrin's quietness and his reserved qualities, where he always seems like he's thinking about something, as him seeing more and knowing more and being able to say the right thing.
Right. Okay.
Whereas Perrin, yeah, he does quite often see more than the others see, but he thinks that he's seeing everything that everyone else is.
Right.
So he kind of feels like he's a bit slow. When everyone else is going like, oh, Perrin's about to speak. We need to listen. This is important. He's always feeling like everyone's speeding past me. And Matt is so much more confident. I wish that I had his ability to speak that way. And Rand is so perceptive. He's able to talk to the girls, and all of them love him. And they're thinking the same thing about him.
Yeah. I like that shifting perspective method of storytelling obviously when it's done right. I think that was one of the attractive parts for the Game of Thrones series that drew me into those books.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting literary device because you can get into people's heads like that by showing rather than telling, which I know sounds idiotic because you're reading a book, but if you're using that sort of premise, that idea, more so than the literal what I just said kind of way.
You have them act on it rather than just someone say that, oh, so-and-so such a decisive person.
Yeah,
You
and they were
actually
always
show
able
them.
to this or that. Yeah. You're just telling. You're just using exposition, whether it could even be internal monologue exposition, whatever, instead of showing the acts and letting that build the character. I mean, that's so much. That notion rings so true with all media, as far as I'm concerned. It's always better to show than tell. Obviously, there are points where a little bit of exposition or describing things obviously has its place. Obviously. But when we're talking about characters, character development, and what really gets you as the viewer, the reader, to connect with these characters is being able to discern, oh, they're doing this. This is showing me, oh, this guy's XYZ. You're not telling me, oh, well, my mother said I was this and I'm super brave and I defeated the lions of this mountain and no.
And I'm fine with characters that do that if they either back it up or, even better, if they're just a bullshit artist.
Yeah.
They're shown to just be a bullshit artist.
Which can make for a really interesting anti-character to, it's all talk. It's all talk. And maybe eventually, as the talk gets away from him and he gets into a situation where they turn out to be something like that, that's done very tongue-in-cheek. Joxer the Mighty and Xena. But to contradict that, somebody like what's Bruce Campbell's character? Autolycus.
Yes.
He's both. He's both. But he talks a big game, but he also overplays his hand. Very interesting sort of dynamic. Yeah, he's not going to be able to go punch for punch with a lot of the big warlords or even Xena herself, who demigod. He can still fight. He's still capable. But
he can kick some ass. He just can't kick ass on that scale,
that level. And sometimes, in being that bit of a bullshit artist, gets away from him, puts him into that situation. Obviously, because he's a hero and he's supposed to win at the end of the day, and the shows can't value, the context of it all. Yeah, he's going to use his strengths to overcome his foot and mouth disease. But yeah. So every one of these devices has potential. They're tools, like anything else. They're tools. The gun is neither evil nor good. It is a tool. It's how the wielder of the pen, the weapon, whatever, it's how you use it.
Yeah, and another series that, if you are looking for a really good fantasy series, that I would hands down recommend, The Lies of Loch Lomond, or Loch. Damn it! Why am I blanking? It's The Lies of Loch Lomond. Lamora. Yes, The Lies of Loch Lamora.
Lynch. Why do I know that name?
So, the premise is that there's a
Gentlemen.
group of thieves that are known as the Gentlemen Bastards. And the Gentlemen Bastards were all brought up from a very young age to be absolutely ridiculous thieves.
Uh-huh.
But every one of the Gentlemen Bastards has a knack. So, for instance, the best second story man and bullshit artist of the Gentlemen Bastards is Loch Lamora. The best fighter is Jean. Jean is my favorite character of the series. Fucking amazing character. God damn. He's awesome. And each one has their own knack. Each one has their own specialty. So it shows how they get in and out of problems. Because being thieves, they tend to get in a lot of different issues. People tend not to like when you're stealing their shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so well done. And it works so well throughout the entire thing. I think the series as a whole is called the Gentleman Bastard series.
Yes.
The first book is The Lies of Loch Lamora. And just everything is perfect with how it goes through the story, and it builds the tension, and then it releases some of the tension, and then it builds some of the tension. And you get the feeling that the characters are friends from very young ages, with how much they can piss each other off and how much they can calm each other down.
You're
Which
a
is
bastard.
something. Yeah, it's something that
I don't have time to read. And you're giving me, what, 3 series now I have to read? You
yes.
bitch. Son of a bitch. The problem is, I know you can get books on tape and it's quicker. I read quickly, but I tend to reread.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get the same digestion of the material if I listen to a book on tape. So for me, book on tape is a really poor choice. I need to have the book in front of me, need to read it, need to be able to at a whim, flip back 5 pages and go, oh, and then go back and reread that page again and go, okay. So I might have missed something before that wasn't completely obvious. Blah, blah, blah. It's just I need the, and it's also for me in half the enjoyment of reading a book is the tactile sensation of having the book in my hand, on paper. Again, I have a Kindle, prefer not to use it, would still rather read than be listening to a book. I'll read it on my computer screen if I fucking have to.
What might be a useful way of using audiobooks for you is just the screening process. You listen to the first chapter.
Yeah, and go, okay, yeah, I can get into this, pick up the book. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Because there's a lot of books that... One of the book series that I was the most disappointed with... In fact, I'll give 2. That way I'm not just picking on one author. So, have you heard of the Red Rising series?
No.
Red Rising is a very interesting sci-fi series, at least up to a point. So the idea is that humanity has bioengineered itself into distinct groups.
Huh.
So at some point there was a hierarchy that was made from the different groups, because each one got a different skin color. And by skin color, I don't mean like this one was black as we know black. This one was
Like literally yellow skinned, blue skinned kind of thing.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
We're dealing with genetic manipulation, so it makes sense.
yeah. You have red
Cool.
skins. You have copper skins. You have the pink skins. You have.
But does that play into what they did to themselves as a group? Like these people have
how they were
thicker
modified.
skin, they can see better in the dark kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So each of the colors has a different aspect that was really tweaked high. So, for
Okay.
instance, let me just run through the color spectrum that they have, starting from the lowest going to the highest. You have reds.
Like lowest on the hierarchy?
Lowest on the hierarchy. You have
And
the reds.
this is like a self-fulfilled social hierarchy between these different castes, let's say. It's not something that just like was like forced. Like this is just after the different groups, it kind of this is how it played out.
Yes and no. So
okay, interesting.
it is partially where they kind of sort in based on how they were edited.
Okay.
But it's also there was someone that decided this is the way that this will be set up.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's a little bit of, yeah, this is kind of where people fall in, and a fair bit of fuck you. So you have the reds, which are the manual laborers and miners. The pinks that are the social functionaries as well as pleasure slaves. The obsidians are the elite soldiers and bodyguards, and those are very fucking obvious. That's kind of what they would default to, regardless, because they're like twice the height of everyone else. They have additional arms, if I remember correctly, and their skin is like twice as thick as most of the other groups. So they're ridiculously hard to actually cut down.
Right.
Which makes them natural soldiers and bodyguards. You have the browns that tend to do a lot of the menial jobs, so janitors, servants, cooks. They aren't down with the reds, but they aren't much higher. Then you have the grays, which are regular soldiers and police officers. You have the oranges that are mechanics and engineers. The violets are artisans and creatives. The greens are programmers and technicians. Yellows are doctors and researchers. Blues are the crew of spaceships and the pilots. Coppers are administrators, lawyers, and bureaucrats. Whites are clergy and judges. Silvers are the businessmen and financiers. And then the golds rule everyone. So it starts off with a somewhat interesting premise, and it builds on that as it goes. The general idea is that there's someone that starts out in the reds, and then they get re-engineered to lead a rebellion. So they're jumped from red to gold. And it's their story. So it starts very well. And it makes it clear that the mental ability difference is not quite what everyone thinks, but it isn't entirely made up either.
Right.
And it plays off that. So the red ends up coming up with things that are fairly... or the guy who goes from red to gold comes up with plans that golds would have never thought of. But the golds can be really quick and really surprising. So there's this interplay. And the main character is sold as being extremely intelligent. And after his modification, he's even more so. First 3 books, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend the first 3 books of the series. Once you hit book 4, if you're like me, you will be pissed off and you'll set it down and never pick it up again.
All right, so go to 3 and then stop.
Yeah,
Got it.
because it has the cardinal sin of writing, in my mind, which is you set up a character, but then you realize that in order for the plot that you want to have happen, your character can't be the character that you've established up to that point. So you have to give them a sudden and profound case of the stupid so that the story can then go on.
That's a shame.
That is the thing that when that happens, yeah, I'm out. I can't continue reading because that is, to my mind, detestable. It ruins the story.
Rips you away from, like you just said, 3 books worth of character building to just rip you away from a case because of a case of the stupids. Like,
yep.
No,
and
can't do that. You can't do that.
Yep, it was a fantastic series.
Game of Thrones.
Yep, it was a fantastic series right up until I got to that section of the 4th book, and then I went, fuck this series.
Yeah. 7 seasons of holding life as sacrosanct. And then in season 8, you're just going to burn a fucking city.
Yep.
Wait,
and
what?
in
You
that
can't
series,
do that.
in the Red Rising series, it was this character knew how dangerous they were. And they hated getting in fights because they knew that every fight had a high probability of killing someone.
Losing control and yeah.
So they might spar with someone, but they wouldn't fight someone.
Right.
Because all it takes is for them to duck to one side when you thought that they were going to come straight on, and you've just ripped out the throat of your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very skilled, very set in his, I will not fight a friend, just to try to incapacitate them. There's no incapacitation. They will probably die.
Right.
And then he does it. Fuck that. No. Fuck you. I'm gone. The other one that did a very similar thing where I just decided, fuck this, I'm out, was the Stoneways trilogy. The Stoneways trilogy was very, very good in book 1. It had a fascinating world where the way that it was set up was a bunch of gods existed way back in time. One of the gods was the most powerful, and he started to abuse all the other gods because he started to get bored. One of the things that he forced a god to do was make humans so that he could hunt them. And all he did was he would hunt the humans. And he just kept on fucking with the other gods, hunting humans, being an absolute bastard to everyone. Until it reached a point where the gods decided, fuck this guy. So they rallied together to usurp this asshole god. In the process, several of the gods died. Several of them were injured to the point where they don't really interact with the world anymore. And the evil god died. But the evil god died, and from his corpse, 3 wizards sprang. They were the only wizards. And they were as much of an asshole as the original.
Huh.
So, story starts from there. There's 3 wizard kings that are all assholes. They all hate each other, but they will fuck over humans as much as they can. The only thing that prevents them from doing it more is each of the 3 is constantly trying to knock out the other 2.
Right.
And then a bunch of different races pop up as well. There's the shifters, which were almost hunted to extinction by the wizards. They're what they sound like. They can change their forms. One of the other races is the dwarves. And the dwarves are the ones that the wizards kind of hate the most, because the dwarves are completely immune to magic. You can't cast spells on them. They just shrug them off.
Mm-hmm.
But the dwarves are completely incapable of procreating.
Oh.
They're made by their god, who was one of the gods that ended up functionally dying. What happened was their god was thrown into the void that is underneath the world. He can't climb back up because there's nothing to climb. So what he's been doing is he's been fashioning dwarves and spitting them at the underside of the world. And that's how all the dwarves are created. All the dwarves are born fully formed as adults. All of them know their names from birth. And they all know how many dwarves there are at any given time. And all of their names are just their number.
Huh?
So the first dwarf is literally named 1 in Dwarven.
Oh.
So they don't seem to die of old age. They're immune to magic, but they can be killed. They're just ridiculously hard to kill. Also, they can carve through stone with their fingers. No problem whatsoever, which is useful since they're spat at the underside of the earth. So all they do is they grab on and start burrowing in and make their home. They also don't really have a problem with being submerged in magma. They're a very strange race in the setting.
Right.
They can be killed, just difficult. And there have only been like 3 dwarves that have ever been killed. And all 3 were killed by a wizard. So all the dwarves are like, fuck you, you killed 3 of us. No, we're going to now be dead set against you. In our ridiculously durable, tough little bastard forms, we're going to find a way to kill all 3 of you motherfuckers. And the humans are alive, and they've started actually creating society and growing up and advancing. So, like I said, fairly interesting setting to fantasy world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Read the first book. First book, amazing. Built the world. The characters were interesting. The races were interesting. The story was fascinating. Second book, halfway through, 2 of the characters have completely changed. And they completely changed over the course of that halfway through the book. You could see them slowly shifting into the new character. It was page 120. You're reading about the same 2 characters that you've been reading about for the previous 100-something pages. Page 121, who the fuck are these people? And again, it's that cardinal sin of writing. If you break your character in order to have the story you want, fuck you.
Yeah, because I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but at least she did the characters. She kept the characters. Like they grew, but they didn't break. She didn't break them at any point.
Yep, she kept the characters, and one of the best moments in a fantasy series is from a Harry Potter book. I've talked about it, I don't know how many times on air. But there's a scene in, I believe it was the Half-Blood Prince, that I wish they had done right in the movies. I wish. Because it was the tensest bit of writing in the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the Prime Minister getting pissed off because everything's been going to shit. A tower is collapsed, a bridge collapsed, shit exploded, people have disappeared. He has no clue what the fuck's going on. And as he's bitching and moaning to himself, just kind of ranting to get it out of his head and see if he can think of anything, because he knows he's probably going to lose re-election because of shit that he has no clue what the fuck it is. The Minister of Magic comes in and goes, yeah, that's us. What do you mean it's you? And the Minister of Magic has to explain that, well, you know how people were disappearing this long ago? Yeah. We caught the guy. No, you didn't. What do you mean, no, we didn't? Well, the guy that you caught wasn't the person doing it. That was us as well. We had this guy. He was a bit of a bastard. He was an evil sorcerer. He was doing all this shit. What the fuck do you mean? He hates people. It's us. We fucked up.
Yeah.
We're trying to fix it. Here's everything that he's done. And it's just this tense scene because it is a conversation that people do not want to have. And it is clear from how it's written that they do not want to have this conversation over events that it's completely beyond one of them, and the other one is having to admit to fucking up. But at the same time, it's taking everything that we've been told in the story thus far, that Voldemort is ridiculously dangerous, that all the Death Eaters are dangerous and they hate people. It's taking all of that and it's giving concrete examples of this isn't about Harry Potter. This is Death Eaters fucking with with the Muggles, with the non-magical people of the world, because they're non-magical and because the Death Eaters hate them.
Yeah.
There's no other goal other than killing Muggles. And that made it tense. That made it uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
That was beautiful because it expanded the story past just these kids in the magical school, and it made it, no, everyone is in danger. Do you know what they did when it came to the movie?
Didn't they just ignore all of that?
That would have actually been slightly better. They took every event mentioned in that meeting and they made it happen all in one chase scene.
Oh, right. When they're yeah.
When the Death Eaters are chasing the multiple Harry Potters because everyone took a polyjuice potion of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bridge that collapsed suddenly, that was a spell targeted at one of the Harry Potters. The building that exploded, that was spell that hit a building rather than one of the Harry Potters. Everything in that meeting that was oh shit, this is so much bigger than everything that we've been told up to this point, was immediately shrunk back down to, no, it was all about Harry Potter. It wasn't about
it was in a series of events that spanned a period of time, a long period of time, and it was all just here all this stuff kind of happened. It was one rogue
It
event.
was one fucking night chasing Harry Potter.
Yeah. Completely changes
Rather-
the context of everything.
Yeah, rather than it being over the course of months and months of them just striking out against the Muggle world because they hate Muggles. Rather than that, it was all one chase scene in one night that was entirely about Harry Potter. It had nothing to do with the Muggles. The Muggles were just collateral damage. Everything was Harry Potter. Fuck that. It ruined one of the best scenes. And that's what I mean about being true to what you're doing. The movies did a really good job of being true to the source throughout most of it.
Yeah.
That was the most egregious example of them just completely shitting the bed when it came to it and going, okay, we're not going to pay attention to what the point of this was, why it was happening, what was going on. We just want a spectacle.
I'm gonna just breeze right past it. Yeah.
And I just realized what time it is. Shall we
Yeah, I'm getting tired.
do parting words? Adam, are you still around? Did you zonk out?
Ground control to Major Adam.
So, functional.
Yes, sir.
Do you have parting words?
Part D's.
Nice. Those are the only ones that you have?
Yeah, why not? Like I said, I'm tired. But it's been fun. Like the show just kind of blew right by.
Oh, yeah. Once we got into
Almost
the
3
topic
hours.
of media and how stories should be told and what people have been fucking up, it just started ripping by.
Well, stories are so integral to the human experience and what has made us the species that we are today. To have things so egregiously awful in such vast quantities, it really, I feel it's really affecting us as a society, as a people. And not doing what it should be doing in supplying us with hope, cautionary tales, lessons for life.
Mm-hmm.
So fuck it.
Yeah, it's damaging having bad stories.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to try out a new variation of parting words because it was a random thought that I had. No soul gets as many chances to be brave as the coward, but the more times these chances are seized, the harder they are to find. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Bye-bye. And if you're passionate about something, devour it. Don't let it devour you.
Yes, the class.